Thank you very much. My name is Representative Randy Grau, and I chair the House Judiciary and Civil Procedure Committee. Per our custom, I'm going to just briefly go over the legislation that was considered and just give you again, very short summary about the subject matter, what the vote was, and then Representative Paul Wesselhoff is here with me, and he did present one of the bills that passed, and I'll let him explain in more detail the purpose of that bill. First, one of the bills that was considered was House Bill 2963, which is authored by Representative Jason Nelson and Representative Wade Russolo. And this is follow-up legislation to changing the adoption procedures and, again, really making sure that we guard against the way that different attorneys and individuals charge for adoptions, and to make sure that, again, we're protecting the children and families that are going through the adoption process. Second, House Bill 2337 is the one that was written by Representative Wesselhoff. That's the Oklahoma Unmanned Aerial Surveillance Act. Has to do with Fourth Amendment protections against unlawful search and seizures, and that passed on what was the most narrow vote that we've had in the committee so far, and that's on a 4-2 margin. House Bill 2424 was presented by Representative Kern, and that has to do with deleting the time limitation for commencing a civil action related to human trafficking. That passed on a 6-0 vote. House Bill 2431, also authored by Representative Kern, has to do with permanent guardianships and would change the law so that you cannot have a permanent guardianship if that person is not eligible to be a foster parent. And so, again, it's to protect children. That also passed on a 6-0 margin. House Bill 2380 was presented by Representative Regina Goodwin out of Tulsa, her first time appearing before the Judiciary Committee, and on a 6-0 vote, we passed that bill that has to do with requiring certified appraisers actually appraise properties in a sheriff's sale procedure, and also had an anti-nepotism policy, making sure that none of the appraisers or interested individuals that are appraising property could be related to sheriff office personnel. The bill that failed to pass was House Bill 2369 by Representative Murdoch out of Felt, Oklahoma. And this would require that if students were suspended due to some violent acts, especially as it related to attacks on teachers, that they could not be readmitted from suspension without an order of the district court. And again, that failed on a 3-3 vote. House Bill 2483 was by Representative Ownby, and that has to do with waiving the right to a jury trial by a party in a parental termination case if the party fails to appear. That was one that was on the agenda last week. There were some concerns of committee members. Those were addressed, and that passed 6-0. House Bill 2718 is by Representative Emily Virgin out of Norman. This would add a hearsay exception to the statutes for seniors. That's anyone who's age 75 or over, and that passed on a 6-0 vote as well. House Bill 2982 is by Representative Chris Kennedy, and that was a significant bill modifying the Uniform Code of Military Justice, especially as it relates to the Guard here in Oklahoma. Representative Kennedy does serve in the Guard as a JAG officer, and that passed on a vote 6-0. House Bill 2844 by Representative Eccles also passed 6-0, and what that does is ensure that officers, directors of a corporation, they're not named individually when they would not be liable, but instead the corporation itself would have to be named, and then again, if there was any sort of alter ego or piercing of the corporate veil, then those individual officers could be brought in. Two more. House Bill 2029 by Representative Scooter Park has to do with the way that ODOT does condemnation procedures. Again, we've had many bills related to that this year. This one would just have to do with comparable sales, market value, making sure that that's compared when there is a condemnation procedure. That passed on a 6-0 vote. And then finally, House Bill 3100 by Representative Jeff Cootie passed on a vote of 5-1, and this has to do with prohibiting a claim of land by the Bureau of Land Management in the state for use in recreational purposes.
Just briefly, House Bill 2337, the Oklahoma Unmanned Aerial Surveillance Act. Basically, this pertains to law enforcement. It doesn't pertain to private ownership of drones or any manufacturing or designing of drones, only to law enforcement. And it basically says that for law enforcement, if you're going to target someone for surveillance, then you must be suspecting that they are breaking the law or about to break the law. And therefore, you need to get a warrant. And we have a judge on call 24 hours a day to obtain that warrant. And if for some reason that you need to surveil somebody and you don't have time to get that warrant, if it's an urgent or emergency, you can still go ahead and do your surveillance, but you've got to get back with the court within 48 hours to explain why it was an emergency and you bypass the judge's warrant. So again, like the chairman said, this is a very, very strong Fourth Amendment bill. Matter of fact, this bill unites the ACLU. They have put out press releases last year in support of this bill, and also the Tea Parties in Tulsa and Oklahoma City support this bill. So it unifies both Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, and liberals. It's a very unusual bill in that regard.